Today on Plums, I'm really excited to sit down with James, the CEO of MultiSynq. Cloud without the cost, applications without landlords, a radical new internet, and maybe so much more. Let's find out in today's episode. Ooh. James, it is an absolute delight to have you here on Plums today. Now, I usually start my podcast episodes with an icebreaker question, but I actually want to tell you a short story now of when I first got introduced to MultiSynq, my first call with the team. And it was back on the 20th of January, which might be a date that some can remember. And I just got off a call with another founder. And on that call, we'd been talking about, the inauguration, how amazing, what a big day it was for the country, how we couldn't believe it. That founder actually had a dark MAGA hat, and he was wearing it on the call. I had my signed Donald Trump Make America Great Again hat, which I'd got off him personally when I met him last year. And so we had this great call, me and this other founder. And then I get on the call with the MultiSynq team, right? And I'm still super excited about it. And I'm like, guys, this is so good to see. I can't believe you're another American team that I get to meet on this day. How excited are you about it? And I forgot that politics is somewhat polarizing. And these guys, they were like, Los Angeles is burning right now. We don't care what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, yes. And so I kind of quietly take the hat off and put it to the side and get down to business. And we managed to get to work together with this fantastic protocol that you now run, James. And I wonder if could you give us like a 30-second kind of elevator pitch of what MultiSynq is and the problems that it solves for the internet today?
Yeah, sure. Our new tagline is application without landlords. The idea is if you want to host your app for your customers, whether it's 5 or 5 million, you shouldn't have to pay some billionaire in a large corporation to have some centralized serving. We provide a way for you to serve it off on a decentralized platform where you pay a whole lot less. You have to do a lot less to get it up and running, and you don't have to worry about the fragility of a centralized location.
Yeah, smart. Really cool. And I want to get more into, the protocol and how it works and those problems that it solves, and also how it is an enterprise. I mean, you're a very serious businessman with an amazing career and history of where you've been around the world. But firstly, I do want to kind of delve into, I mentioned those, the other founders, the other people that have been involved, and it is an unbelievable curriculum vitae of founders and advisors that have been on this journey with MultiSynq. And so I want to play a game with you, James, now, if you're up for it. And I'm calling it Sink or Swim, and it's basically true or false. Okay. And so I'm going to say something about one of your advisors, and then you're going to tell me whether it's sink true or swim false.
All right.
Okay.
You're really testing me because I am new. Let's see how this goes.
You're going to love it. Okay. So Alan Kay, one of your advisors, he built a working Dynabook prototype in the 1970s. Is that sink true or swim false?
I'm going to have to say that I've heard lots of big stories, but I haven't heard that one. So I don't know.
Okay, well, it is sync. That is true. So, yeah, Alan Kay, he wrote, I looked it up. He wrote some papers in the late 60s on this, Dynabook, this way of doing a laptop. And then he built the first prototype in the 70s. Amazing, amazing guy and amazing story. Okay, so the next one, David P. Reed, another one of the, co-founders, one of the advisors of the protocol now, helped design part of the original TCP IP protocol. Is that sync true or swim false?
I believe that's true.
That is true. It is sync. Yeah, again, amazing. I mean, this is the backbone of the internet we work today, use today. And, he's an advisor working with you, trying to build the internet of tomorrow. Okay, so Next one, Avi Bar-Zeev co-founded the original company behind Google Earth. Is that sync true or swim false?
Well, this is another one I don't know. So I'm gonna say false just because I don't know.
Okay, it's true. It's another one, another absolute banger. To have this guy, helping again and to be involved in, another great, project out there. Okay, Ken Perlin briefly left academia to work as the lead graphics programmer on Titanic's sinking sequence. Is that sync true or swim false?
Well, you really nailing me with these hard questions. But I'm seeing a trend here, so I'm going to say true because all the others were.
This is how I get you. That one was false. Okay. That was a swim.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but after the other one, you threw me off.
Well, it's because so many of the team have been involved with movies and game production, and James Cameron. There's a strong connection within the team. So, easy to get you. Okay, the next one. Dan Ingalls was one of the original developers of the Smalltalk language. Is that sync true?
I think I did hear that one.
Okay, that is sync. That is true as well. Okay, next one. We're going back to Avi Bar-Zeev. Did he create a prototype AR headset in the 1990s that only rendered in the color blue?
I've not heard that, so I'll say no. I'll say false. Or is that swim?
It is false.
Okay. Only blue. There's a little bit of a tip-off.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. The final one then I'm going to go with is Tony Parsi co-created the VRML 3D graphics standard. Is that sync true?
I think I saw that. So I'm going to say true.
Yeah, it is true. And the kind of point I'm trying to make throughout this is that MultiSynq, under your leadership, has these phenomenal characters who are involved at various different levels, both in technical and in just advisory roles, that add phenomenal weight to what you're doing as you're building this system without landlords, without these kind of new digital oligarchs that are controlling choke points on the internet. Now, I wonder if you can. You told me the kind of strap line there. What's the focus for syncing now? What are you looking to try and sync in the first instance? The whole internet could be built on MultiSynq effectively.
Well, the internet can. Not all technologies can, right? So, OpenAI is not going to be a target customer for us because they need dense GPUs in a small area all working together, in a different way than what we do things. So of the $650 billion of application hosting, we do a really good job of about $182 billion of that. So we're over 25%, but we're not everything. We want to be really careful to tell everybody we're not a panacea, but if you're doing something that doesn't need to be centrally located, then we should be the one you're looking at.
Yeah, nice. And tell me about some of those target industries. Which ones, as you ramp up sales, which ones are you saying, guys, this is where we think we can make a difference, where we can, reduce costs or solve a problem for these clients?
Well, I got 11 that are identified, right? So they include things like AI agents and gaming and financial applications, right? Drones, robots, anything that doesn't have to be all centrally located. Everything else is wide open to us. We plan on going after all 11. We're going to get intense on 2. I call it pie-shaped because, it's flat with 2 deep things there. But yeah, all of those 11, they add up to about $182 billion of target business that's being spent right now.
Okay, and how have you identified those 2 as the ones that make the most amount of sense?
Well, the two that we're going to go after the most, we're going to be really kind of pragmatic about it. All of the different 11, they're all huge. I mean, the smallest is like, I'll look over it. The smallest is 3 billion. So we really can't go wrong. And so we're going to go after whichever ones we start to get the fastest traction, and we'll just get deeper and deeper. And then after 6 months to a year, we'll add a third. A year later, we'll add a fourth. We'll add a fifth. And then, in 5 years, I expect to be deep in all 11.
Yeah, okay, cool. Nice. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we usually in Plums, we like to have a silly kind of interlude, some kind of, whether it's a meme or sometimes we have things made by the community. But given the that kind of January, the 20th of January kind of connection and that fun, I have a very silly clip that I thought you might enjoy and may well join me in laughing at, which we'll play right now.
Let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection.
His various cases of, he's got charges of inciting an erection.
Donald John Trump incited the erection.
They didn't like Donald Trump. They said he participated in an erection.
It gets me every time. Oh, people, I think that's half the problem and half the joy of American politics is that it is incredibly entertaining and fun, but it is people's lives, and
well, look,
I know you're a big freedom maximalist, so
I have a concept I call the basketball problem. When I go to a game and I see someone commit a foul, I like to be objective to see who actually committed the foul. Yeah. But in most cases, half of the stadium jumps up and says, "Oh, that was a good call." Another half of the stadium jump up and says, "That was a terrible call," right? You get so caught up in the colors of the jerseys, you forget about, something actually happened.
Yeah.
And
so important. People miss that all the time.
You should care much more about real life than you care about is your team right or is your team wrong.
Yeah, very wise. And I alluded to it earlier, James. You've had a phenomenal career, and I'm hoping that the pinnacle is MultiSynq and taking this to the world and delivering this amazing product, to all those markets that you identified. But you have had this phenomenal career, effectively being a businessman all across the world. I understand that you spent a lot of time in China. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder, is there anything from China that you think we should copy? Can we sync something from China to use here in the West?
Right. So I've been to Japan the most.
Okay.
So I've been to Japan 80 times. I've been to China only 25 times. Cumulative 6 months of my life in China. Look, the best thing out of China is extremely intelligent people with a lot of entrepreneurial gusto, right? The problem with China, hopefully I don't offend 1.2 billion people, is that because of the political system, they do not have, I should say, a history of understanding accountability. So when you go to the national park, there's trash strewn about all over. And when you go to do business, sometimes honesty is a fluid definition, right? Yeah. If they could get a little bit of understanding about that concept of property ownership and accountability, they would be amazing. Mm-hmm. But today, when you do business in China, the number one, concern is intellectual property ownership. How do I do business without losing what I own? I mean, I've seen it many times personally. And I once sent one of my lawyers over to look in a trash can to find out what they were doing 25 years ago, because we were being stolen by one of our subcontractors. But I've also worked with some individuals there that are amazing. So
yeah, I mean, that's basically exactly the same as my experience. I ran a small, very, very, very small business, and we both imported and manufactured car parts, and we developed some of our own, and we worked with Chinese partners, and they were copied instantly. I mean, literally instantly, and that was annoying. But sometimes they'd go out their way to do things like, I'll give you an example. So obviously we have to pay import duty and VAT when things come in, and our Chinese counterparts would say, "Okay, yeah, we're marking it as a gift," or like falsifying the bill of lading. I'm like, no, you can't do that. We need it to say what it is and what it's worth. And like, why would you do that? And they're saying this was like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because
why would you be honest? They, Mao got rid of all of their rich culture, right? Yeah. All that good stuff they've had for thousands of years. He tried to trash it. Yeah. And look, the first time I went to China was went to China with other people from my company. I mean, I went there many times previously, but in 2002, I brought a junior employee with me, and he'd never been out of the United States before. And he came down to breakfast, all excited, and said, "Look, I was watching TV this morning. Everything here is so good. I can't believe how great things are in China." And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I watched the news and there weren't any bad stories." And I said, "Dude, you ever heard the word propaganda?" And he had no idea what I was talking about. Yeah. Well, 1.2 billion people can't watch YouTube.
Yeah.
They don't have the outside information. Now, one of the cool things about MultiSynq is that since we are serving up all of our applications from a big hive of synchronizers out there, there's no IP address to block. So if you want to get to your app into China, you just plop it on our platform and it becomes unblockable.
Yeah, it's unstoppable. Yeah, really important. Yeah, as you say, it's almost... and you said there was some caveats with what it can and can't do earlier, but it's in my mind, it's what the internet should have been, this unstoppable... without these pinch points, without these, controlling kind of parties and these abilities to stop it. Phenomenal. You mentioned, some great, Chinese people that you met, and I'm sure you met some wonderful Japanese as well. But there are some kind of key cultural differences, right, between doing business. I mean, even just between the United States and Europe. I come across it. There's this funny thing, and I hope you don't mind me saying this. Sometimes when I'm talking to, American founders and I tell them the truth in a full and frank manner, they're surprised. Like, and I think there's just a part of Northern Europe that does this. Like, the Dutch are very famous for it, and the Germans, for us just saying what we think. Whereas Americans often they are really nice and, will, just kind of lead you along for ages before trying to instead of saying, no, I don't like that, or this is the way it should be, right? And in Japan, there's that specific way of, it takes a long time to get a deal done, right?
Well, yeah.
There's lots of dinners and drinking in between.
So I'll give you the quick story about that. So I did a lot of deals in Japan, and many of them, surprisingly fast. And part of that is that, once they realized I was honest, we could get things done. And part of that's because of my religious beliefs. I don't drink alcohol. So I would go out for dinner, and we would sit down, and they would put sake in front of me, and I would say, no, thank you. And they say, we're all together. You have to have sake or beer. And I said, no, I don't drink alcohol. And they would say, why not? I said, because of my religion. And they would say, it's okay if you do it just once. Now, I've had this conversation at least a dozen times. And they would say, oh, if you do just once. And I would say, is it okay if I cheat you just once? And they say, well, no. And I say, well, that's why I can't drink just once, because once I give up my integrity, I never get it back again. And they would say, I've heard this at least 25 times. James, son, that is very wise, right? Well, after that, negotiations went really fast, right? When I said, I need this, they would know I wasn't lying to them. I really needed it. Yeah. And so we got deals done really fast.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Good to hear. I mean, it is, it's funny you talk about, drinking liquor. people get shocked and almost offended that you don't drink. In Western cultures, if you're going out, with friends or whatever, and they're like, "Why aren't you drinking?" They're like, it's almost like, "Why is this?" Happening? I don't drink either. It's incredibly, incredibly rare that I'll drink any liquor. And people think it's strange, weird, almost like you're checking up on them, and then they have to worry somehow. I mean, it is a bizarre kind of social construct that's come about through drinking.
Well, I have a long list of things I say. One of my favorites is, well, my sense of humor is good enough. I don't need assistance. Things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the point. When I was younger, I don't mind dancing on the dance floor without getting hammered first. I can dance badly without, like, a thank you. Yeah, good. Now, James, you've published a book, at least one book.
3.
3, okay. And, when writing books, you write them, at that point in time. So it's a reference point in time. And, you can make judgment calls on what the future is going to be like and what the past is and what the present is. But obviously things change, understanding and all the rest of it. Is there anything in those books that you could sync up to date now that you think, oh yeah, I called that not quite right, or I changed this, or
Well, in my second book, I actually went through a lot of predictions I made back in 1999 and 2000, and I kind of scored them of which were accurate and which weren't. So I've done that to myself.
Nice.
And I try to be as blunt as I could.
Take us through some. Tell me some of the predictions.
Well, what
was your best prediction and what was your worst prediction, the one that didn't come true and the one that came true the most?
Well, back then my job was to be a futurist, predict the future, which technologies would win and which weren't. All right, so what was my best? The smartphone, digital music, things like that. Now, we actually had... back then, I actually I negotiated the very first sale of music over the internet with Warner Music, and I got the very first license from the RIAA for having an internet radio. So, we actually acted on some of those things. But
serious. And was that with Sony?
That was with a little startup that I was doing.
Okay.
But the problem I had was the timing. I was much more enthusiastic about how quickly things would happen than what they actually did. I thought I was being conservative. We had all kinds of tables and predictions about how quickly, broadband internet would come into the homes around the world, which countries first, all the percentages, all that kind of thing. But we really underestimated the momentum of the companies to take advantage of it. I judge people to be smarter than what they were. Now, I guess on the other side is if I had the money and I was doing it, maybe it would have happened faster. That's what my ego says.
Yeah, good.
For example, I predicted that Disney Plus streaming services, but I said it would be 2008, not 2018. I was only off by 100% in timing.
Yeah. There's that fantastic quote in The Big Short, where Michael Burry is, he tells one of his investors who's desperately trying to get him to unwind his short position on, these collateralized mortgage obligations. And, Michael Burry's saying, "I'm not wrong, I'm just early." And the guy says, "It's the same thing."
Well, yeah, if you're buying options that have a timeline to it, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
I would say that the happiest, though, I was the first time I was listening to internet radio in my car, because that was something I put my neck out on the line once. And I said, one day streaming audio over the internet will be much more popular than FM radio. And the old men in the room, I was young at the time, the old men in the room said I was stupid. So the first time I heard it, that was vindictive. That's not the right word. Vindicative. That's a much better selection of words.
Yeah. You wonder at that point whether you should get in touch with any of them and say, "Hey guys,
I think they're all dead now."
Nothing to do with you.
No.
Sure.
I do know the chairman that turned. So the deal that I made to do the sale of music over the internet, the chairman actually said, "Who would ever buy digital music?" And well, he's dead now, but I think I was shown to be right on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones where, you know, the average man off the street looking at that prediction now, going, you know, looking at what you wrote, they go, well, duh, of course it was. But no one at the time would think that. That's
actually the best ideas should be responded with the word duh, right? Hey, we shouldn't have everything located in one place in a big building. Well, duh, right? We should everything hosted across the entire internet. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
The best ideas are really simple.
I think most people think that's the way the internet works already. They don't realize. I mean, people think, you know, that we hear the cloud, and the cloud doesn't exist. It's just someone else's computer somewhere, you know, and you know, MultiSynq allowing it to be truly peer-to-peer and, you know, unstoppable without those landlords, as you said, is actually how people think it works. You know, they hear sometimes, you know, on the news here, oh, the Russians are cutting the cables in the oceans again. You know, they sometimes, oh, maybe there is critical points of failure, but they don't fully appreciate, you know, these kind of central nodes that we have in our systems. You know, Cloudflare going Cloudflare.
Cloudflare went down last week.
Yeah, Cloudflare going down. You know, it's one of those, and they go, why? You know, how does that work? Why is that like that? So super interesting. And you didn't tell me one that you got wrong. What were there any that you were like, yep, I think this is going to happen, and it's just not come about?
Well, I did have one prediction for a technology that hasn't happened yet. The idea was, and actually blockchain should do it quite well. The idea was to have your advertising completely customized, so that you would put in your properties, who you are, what you like, what you don't like. And it would have a central location that's, you know, firewalled off. And that way, whenever you look at advertisements, whether it's on TV or, you know, browsing or whatever, you'd only see advertisements that apply to you. Now, I anticipated that would happen by 2007, and I haven't seen that anywhere yet. I mean, the use of cookies is, you know, somewhat customizing, but like if I'm in my vision of the future, if I'm on a trip to the UK and I go into my Marriott hotel in London on the West End and I pull up my browser, I should see advertisements for things back home in California. Or if I should see advertisements for things like the theater in London, or I should see advertisements for restaurants. But I shouldn't see advertisements for things like where to buy new tires off in Luton, right?
Yeah, no, you don't need that. I think that's actually going to come, though. I know a guy who is working on for a software company that does way more what I think is invasive tracking of people, specifically through televisions. And so you'll see whenever you buy a new TV now, the kind of... I mean, it came up on my TV like 2 days ago, Samsung saying, hey, you know, you need to accept this. We want to share your details with 283 different partners. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. And you have to press quite a few buttons to deny these various tracking services. And someone is going to come along and be able to unify all these data points with some form of unique identifier for every person, and be able to, give us. And some people say, well, that's more relevant. You know, I do want, for me, I do want to learn more about specific things and get advertisements for specific things. But in many cases, I don't want to be tracked.
I think tracking is the approach, right? Tracking looks back. It should be looking forward. Like let me give you a couple examples, right? I've had 5 children. Well, once that child is out of diapers, I don't want to see another diaper advertisement, right? Now I want to, and what if I just bought a car? Well, I want to see more car advertisements for a while either. But when I'm in the market for a car, I want to see the advertisements for cars. So I want something that knows what my preferences are right now, where I live right now, what I care about right now. And most people aren't willing to give that information up because they're afraid it's going to get stolen. But if they've been put in a place that's secure and safe, like maybe in a wallet somewhere that's, zero trusted, then it can be accessed in terms to validate what ads get shown and not shown, and you don't have to worry about, you're giving your whole life secrets away.
Yeah, seriously cool.
But
need that.
But for example, what if I'm interested? My wife says, let's go on a trip to Italy. Well, I should be able to go into my preference and says, I'm interested in going on a trip to Italy, and I should see advertisements about that. And after the trip, I shouldn't see any more advertisements about that.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a frustration of mine. When I book, so I have the pleasure of going on lots of trips, lots of holidays, etc. And once I've made the bookings, which I will do all in one go, I'll often stay in multiple places. For weeks, if not months later, I will get more adverts for that region. It's like I've already booked now. I don't need these adverts. One example, just a counterpoint. There was a famous story, reported in the press here in the UK about a supermarket chain that sent, this was back when they used to do paper, coupons, etc., that were sent in the post. And they sent these coupons to a young lady in a family household that was about children's stuff, like for babies, like diapers, baby food, etc. And the father, obviously, because they're not in envelopes, you see it all, the father got incredibly unhappy and complained to Tesco and said, look, this is unacceptable. Why are you advertising baby stuff to my 16-year-old daughter? It turns out she hadn't told him that she was pregnant, but because of what she'd bought at Tesco using her club card, they knew she was pregnant. And so they were then advertising based on, as you said, the future kind of expected demand of what she'd be buying. And but yeah, there was that information, asynchronicity there. But anyway, we should probably get back on to...
Just to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I would like a world where you volunteer what information you want to share, and the stuff that you don't want to share, you keep private. So I don't like the tracking process, right? Yeah. When I came back through immigration last week, I was down at DevCon in Argentina. When I came back through immigration, all they did was take my picture. I didn't even have to show my passport or talk to them or tell them where I've been or anything. Mm-hmm. Now, that was fast, but it was a little creepy, right?
Yeah. I was on a list for a while coming into the States. I used to get extra checks. And I don't know what that was about, but there you go. So, but now you talked earlier about, being a futurist, making predictions. Sometimes you were too conservative. Sometimes you were, very accurate otherwise. Tell me about, just very quickly, some of the predictions for MultiSynq. Where do you think, MultiSync's going to be over, a few key time periods, whether that's a year, 2 years, 5 years? Where do you think it's going to be?
All right, well, so let me give you some of the concepts of prediction, how they work, right? The best way is to use principle-based prediction, all right, that work in any industry in the same analogous situations. Whenever you say, here's what's going to happen because we're different and new without any really good fundamentals, then you're going off on a limb. All right, so we're going to be taking the classic disruption approach laid out by Clayton Christensen in his books, Innovator's Dilemma, Innovator's Solution, and kind of like the pinnacle of his book, Competing Against Luck. The idea is that our competitors are huge, right? How big is Amazon? $300 billion, whatever it is for AWS. They serve all kinds of people. And when I look at that $650 billion market and I say, this group over here, people I can address, guess what Amazon does? Those are the people they want because they get to charge more for it. So the people I'm going after, the people they don't really care about. When I take away those customers, Amazon will probably be a little bit happier. Those customers aren't there to complain anymore. We're going to take away pain from AWS and Google and Microsoft and Cloudflare. They're going to say, oh, good, those guys are gone. We'll be able to get $500 million up to maybe $1 billion of revenue, and our competitors aren't going to feel any pain at all. They're going to be happier. Once we cross that $1 billion revenue line, they're going to start saying, hey, wait a minute, I have a salesman that didn't get his quota this month. What's going on? Yeah. But I think we have 2 or 3 years, if we do our job right, where we can run and run and run, and they might actually be happy we're there because we're taking away the people they don't want.
Yeah, nice.
If if we go too slow, we're going to lose that opportunity. By 5 years from now, I'm completely convinced that all of our competitors are going to have decentralized solutions. We got 5 to 7 years. Now, that might be a prediction where I'm off on the timing, but I'm right on the thing. So let's say 5 to 7 to 8 years of time before they have that. And that's our chance to run in and grab a bunch of land and stake our claim.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, really cool. Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing that come true. We're coming to the end, though, James, and we do have the final segment of the podcast, which is the How Big Are Your Plums, which is our truth and dare. Now, you don't have to do these. You can back out, and I'm going to give you 2 opportunities to back out, one after the other. But if you do want to back out, then we need a giveaway for the listeners of the podcast. So before I give you the truth, what would what is the potential thing that you might be able to give our listeners? Is there anything you'd be able to give away if you were to back out at this stage? What are you thinking?
Well, the 2 best things I have to give away are the opportunities to be synchronizers and validators in our network, right?
Yeah, cool.
If we're going to take over the world, you want to be part of that, don't you?
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, cool. So a validator in MultiSynq. Okay, so the truth, if you're happy to go ahead, is name a protocol, and I'm going to say company as well, that you think is massively overhyped.
Oh, that's the hard one because there's so many to choose from. You mean right now?
Yeah. Yeah, who's overhyped?
Let's see, I don't want to make too many enemies. How do I narrow this down? It'd be easier if you asked me which ones aren't hyped enough. I would say, boy, back in 2022, I was all over the place talking about how NFT market was stupid, and it would die within 6 months, and it was like 3 days later. I think there's a lot of hype right now about the 2 big areas. One is stablecoin stuff and Web3 infrastructure. Now, both of those things are going to be huge, right?
Yeah.
Stablecoins, the forecast, right now there's more than $1 trillion of US-based stablecoins being traded every year. And that's expected to go up to about $3 trillion within a few years. And because of that, it looks like the United States dollar as the reserve currency is kind of saved. Mm. I don't know of the 10,000 companies trying to do things at an area that there's really much money for all 10,000 to be around. Yeah. The same thing with Web3 infrastructure. How much infrastructure is actually needed and essential? And are the 3,000 companies doing it really all needed? So I would say while the areas themselves are substantial, the number of players seems to be way too many. And so if you're going to be making an investment in that area, you need to be really careful. In fact, I wouldn't make too much myself. I would place a few bets, but I'd be really careful going in on all of them.
As someone has often said, James San, very wise. So the dare. Now, you've seen the truth. I think you're going to do the dare. So I'm just going to go straight with it. But you do have the chance to back out, James. Are you happy to go ahead?
Let's go ahead.
Okay. Describe MultiSynq as if you are a children's storyteller reading at bedtime.
Well, that's easy. Let's see. I'm glad you didn't warn me about this. You can test my storytelling. Now, I'll start off by saying I do have a challenge I give everybody. Okay. Name a topic or a situation, and I will even have a joke or a story about it. So that's a challenge I'll throw out to anybody.
Nice.
All right. So the story about MultiSynq to a child. There were once 4 kingdoms that were very large. And each of the kings of those kingdoms were tyrants. And they would take all the money from the people and they would use them to buy large yachts and mansions and castles. The people did not like the situation. They wished they could have their food and not give all their money to the kings. And so a small country off to the side said, come work with us, and you can work in our land, you can farm yourself, and you get to keep all the food, and you get to raise your families and share with all of the with everybody everything and do well. And the people in that country grew, and they expanded, and they all became wealthy. The four kings became very angry because they wanted the money for themselves. But by the time they realized that that country was growing, it was too late, and that country was too strong because of their individuality and because of their getting the rewards for their own efforts. There's nothing those kings could do. They eventually died, and years later, those four kingdoms collapsed. How's that for a good story?
Nice. That is very good. If that was me, I'd be like, Dad, tell me another story. But yeah, really good. James, you've been an absolute delight. Thanks for coming on to Plums today. It's been great to hear more about MultiSynq and your history, your vision, and where you're going to take this, and hearing that wisdom that you have for this phenomenal protocol and business. Hopefully we'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
The information and discussion provided here is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Berry is not licensed to provide investment advice and does not offer such. Berry typically holds positions in the project and protocols he discusses and discloses that to you here. Opinions expressed by guests are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of Berry, Plums, or their affiliates. As with all things, and especially financial matters, please do your own research and consult with professionals where relevant.